Hey, I'm Pops, and yeah, I Was a Stranger is a new Angel Studios film out in theaters right now. I'm gonna give you a little tease and talk about that movie and give you a little thoughts on whether or not it's a good fit for you. All right, I'm Pops, and yeah, I Was a Stranger is a new Angel Studios film dealing with the Syrian refugee crisis, basically from the early 2010s through the 2020. It's like millions and millions of people have been leaving and fleeing the dystopian nightmare that becomes Syrian. And the film follows different characters, different people in different walks of life who basically are all converged into sort of a state of survival. So this is in the trailer. This is some footage from the doctor segment of the movie where you have this character. She's working in a hospital, saving everyone, then races home to be with her family because it's her birthday. You have some shots with her daughter, and then of course the trailer does spoil some of the tragedy, but it is kind of give you a feel for if this movie is going to be a good fit for you because it right away. And yeah, it is that shocking and it is that disturbing many, many times in this film for all the different walks of life.
ترصصها لساتها جوا. صورة الأشعة بتورجي
طارق حالي طارق هذا الجندي وضعه حرج.
زافر بترجاك. تخصصي أشعة. اللي 72 ساعة واقفة على رجلي وقربت خلص مناوبتي. لا بالإنعاش.
شكرا نبيل.
ولو
So the film transitions into a soldier character, Mustafa, who is caught up in the Syrian army side of the equation, where he's seen them go from house to house, pulling people out of their homes, taking husbands from wives, kids from families, then lining them up as basically factions and terrorists, and then putting them down. And it kind of comes to a head where he himself is out on border patrol after having some conflict with his father, who is very pro rebel, and you end up with sort of like some violence and some chaos that kind of corresponds again with the doctor. And then there's always like a cutaway, there's always a moment that stalls so that you are kind of left. So this is like segment number 2 in the film. Now, Omar Sy stars as the smuggler. He is the third person in this story. And yeah, Marwan is moving people across the ocean into Greece ocean territory so the Coast Guard there can save them. He is getting paid 1,500 for a child, 2,000 for an adult. There's all this back and forth here. Very charismatic figure, very talented actor, of course, very high profile in the grand scheme of everything else going on this. And this is what's in a lot of these different shots with the family. You see money being exchanged. You see him interacting with his young child who's ill, talking about how can they get out of this area of the world and over to America, the land of opportunities, and go to Chicago and go to school, all the different dreams that humans would have no matter where they are in the world. And the final main character is called the Captain, and he is just a phenomenal leader on the Greece Coast Guard ship, rescuing these people out on these little rubber boats, rescuing them from death, pulling them on board. And then the film kind of ties him together with all this. Now, the biggest thing about this movie is that it's told out of order. The timeline is not in order. It is also in segments that leave you with cliffhangers or unresolved moments that kind of tie to another segment. And it kind of keeps stacking and stacking. And each piece has a lot of emotions. There's different things that kind of pull of your heartstrings. Obviously, the mother and daughter, and they're hiding in a trunk and they're trying to talk about her father. And then there's a shootout scene and the soldiers, and oh my gosh, this poor child and what this person must be going through with sort of their version of PTSD. And then, this smuggler who's kind of like he has this little catchphrase like they make it or don't, it pays the same. Like he doesn't seem to care on the surface because everyone treats him as a dude who's just in it for the money. But you see these long driving shots, which really kind of help point you backwards to what his motivation is. This poor kid that he leaves home alone to go off and do this. And then, of course, the captain, who's probably one of the most dynamic characters in the movie, doesn't feel like you get to know him well because it comes so late in the movie and then things kind of come to their abrupt conclusion. But he's really carrying the baggage, the guilt for anyone they can't save, all of this stuff just kind of weighting down on them. And he is used as the mechanism for the filmmaker to talk to the audience, right? So there's a scene where they're sitting around eating, and it's sort of like first world problems. It's not necessarily they're Greece, they're Greeks, they're Greeks, but you have sort of that American insertion of the commentary of, well, who's going to pay for all these refugees? And oh, some of them are going to be terrorists, and some of them are going to be violent. And how can you say that? And that little brief moment feels and fits in the grand scheme of the story arc here and points to something that's very topical for today. For me, the performances are great. I think everything in the movie really, really, really works well. I think the sad and tragic part of it is there's just so many stories, so many subplots, so many characters that anytime you're sort of emotionally invested, you're kind of ripped away from those moments. Then you're thrust into another situation and learning about new characters and new situations. Like, a little girl is going to be sad about leaving the little dog behind. And, oh, this person's dealing with the emotional loss of a loved one, all these different things that are happening. And I don't think the filmmakers understanding that push-pull thing kind of keeps us from fully connecting the film. It keeps us very disconjointed. The overall biggest criticism of the film would be the fact that this film is a major downer. It doesn't not only give you sort of the heartbreak of, hey, this is still going on in the world, we should be connected to it and know more about what's going on. And it is trying to send a message of some sympathy and trying to understand what refugees and people that are coming are in the age where obviously this is a hot topic. And I do think some critics and audience members probably will not be able to separate this film from current affairs, even though we're talking about two completely different refugee crises. But that sort of human empathy that we all share and have for one another is sort of like exploited in this film. I don't think it's meant to be a total commentary or on the nose commentary for today, but it can feel that way. And the biggest thing though is it just ends tragically in so many different ways. Like you're leaving feeling gut punched at the end of the movie with this story arc going bad, this story arc bad, pointing to this situation, pointing to that situation. So without giving you major spoilers, that's the general gist of it. Then I'll give you my score and stuff, and then I'll tell you what those spoilers are a little bit more. But overall, a solid film because executed well, performed well. It's a foreign film for the most part. There's lots of English, but there's also a lot that's going to be subtitled. That's not going to be for everyone. But I think that push-pull thing is really where the disconnect happens. I think it's stuck in the Midland situation because of that. It just can't get even enough. And even though it is highlighting something that should be highlighted, there are a lot of other projects and other films and things that have been done over the years, documentary and otherwise, that have talked about this type of thing. 2.5 out of 5, very Midland for me. Doesn't feel like it's going to be something digestible for a mass audience. It's also not something I wouldn't be opposed to seeing in a theater or an experience with other people. All right, so with all that said, let me talk about those spoilers for a moment. It just ends very badly because they're on to come together on this little raft, and the Greek captain is there. One of the little boys falls overboard. He runs in, tries to save the boy. Boy doesn't make it. There's like a montage clip of other scenes and other sequences throughout the movie. Another little girl in a refugee camp seeing that little dog. The dog's trapped in the camp. He has to be left behind because no one can take the dog. The little boy that's left because Omar's side character doesn't make it out. So he's stuck just in an empty home. There are all these things. So like I said, the weight of all of this just comes down on you and you leave just crushed. And I know the theater gives you this sort of typical Angel Studios, you can be interactive ministry type of thing. This film is not a Jesus film. It doesn't really have any religion sort of tied on it. There's one moment where they silently pray to themselves, but overall, I think that it just kind of misses the mark on why people would want to see this in the theater. It probably can do well streaming, but I don't think theatrically people are going to want to sit through that. It also feels like a film that's going to be apt for January, which is that in-between time pre-award season here in America. So it's solid, but not solid enough. We don't know where to put it. We don't know how to market it. It just, it definitely feels like all that. So that's my general take on I Was a Stranger. Thanks for watching, everybody. I am Pops.